The alien arena was huge, shaped like a circle, glowing with sharp blue lights. Thousands of alien spectators filled the stands, screaming and roaring, hungry for violence. Floating cameras moved around the top, broadcasting the event across. The Empire. Above all, sitting on a high throne, was King Ralzek of the Dranex Empire, a tall creature with 4 glowing eyes and skin like cracked stone. Beside him sat his daughter, Princess Arixa, armored from head to toe in golden battle gear. Today was her celebration. Her victory over the Trascan rebellion had made her the youngest general in their species' history. And for her reward, the king had brought her a gift. A cage rose slowly from beneath the floor. Inside it stood a human, a man dressed in old, torn combat gear. His face was calm, his arms chained behind his back. He looked dirty, tired, but his eyes were alert. "This," the king announced loudly, his voice echoing through the arena, "is a human warrior from the lost Earth colonies. A rare specimen, once trained to fight in the dead zones of the Outer Ring." The crowd hissed and laughed. A human, weak, meat, slave. The cage opened. Guards shoved the man forward until he stood in the middle of the arena. The dirt under his boots was still red from past blood. Princess Arixa stood up, proud and confident. "Father," she said, "shall I crush him with fists or blade?" The king laughed. "Crush him however you wish. Make it quick or slow. Humiliate him. Show them your strength." The crowd cheered wildly as Arixa walked down to the arena floor. She wore light golden armor and carried a plasma sword at her side. As she reached the center, she stood in front of the human and looked him up and down. "So small," she said coldly. "What's your name, slave?" The man looked up slowly. "Kale." Arixa tilted her head. "What are you thinking, little Kale?" Kale's voice was steady. "I'm thinking, you're wearing that armor wrong." The entire arena went silent. Even the king leaned forward. Arixa's face twisted with anger. She drew her sword. "You dare insult me, human?" Kale's hands were still bound behind him. "I'm just being honest." Without warning, Arixa rushed forward. She swung her sword fast and low, aiming to knock his legs out. Kale stepped sideways, smooth, fast, and the blade missed completely. He spun with the movement, letting his shoulder tap her arm gently. She stumbled. The crowd gasped. Guards moved forward, but the king raised a hand. "No, let him continue." Arixa snarled and slashed again. This time Kale bent backwards. Her sword cut through the air where his head had been. In the crowd, several alien generals looked at each other. "That dodge?" One whispered, "That was military training." Kale took 2 calm steps back. "I don't want to hurt you," he said quietly, "but I will if I must." Arixa screamed and launched herself at him with full force. Kale moved. His elbow cracked into her wrist with perfect precision. Her sword flew from her hand and landed on the ground beside them with a metal clank. She froze. Shocked. The crowd went dead silent again. Kale walked over, picked up the sword by its edge, holding it flat across both hands, and gently handed it back to her. "No honor in disarming someone," he said softly. She stared at him, unable to speak. From above, King Ralzek's smile faded. He looked toward one of his commanders. Where did this human come from? The commander shifted uncomfortably. He was captured in the old ruins near Sector 7X. No full records. The king frowned. "Get me everything, now." Back in the arena, Arixa finally found her voice. "Where did you learn that?" "She asked Kale." Kale looked at her, then at the crowd, then back at her again. "You think humans are weak," he said calmly. "But you haven't seen what we become when we stop holding back." A shiver went through her, not fear, but confusion. She had trained in war for years. She had crushed armies. But this human had disarmed her in seconds. While chained. The arena was quiet long after Kale walked away. Even hours later, in the royal halls of the Dranex battlecruiser, the whispers hadn't stopped. A slave had disarmed the princess, not with strength, but with calm skill. It was a scar the Empire didn't know how to hide. Princess Arixa stood in the training chamber alone, swinging her blade again and again. Her hands moved fast, but her mind replayed one moment, the exact angle Kale had hit her wrist, the way her grip had failed, and his voice, "You're wearing that armor wrong." She hated how those words stayed with her. Elsewhere on the ship, Kale sat cross-legged in a cold metal holding cell. His hands were no longer chained, but guards with plasma rifles stood just outside the door. Kale ignored them. He sat still, breathing slow, eyes closed, not sleeping, but listening. Footsteps approached. The heavy door opened with a hiss. It wasn't a guard. A tall, four-armed alien stepped in, dressed in a red officer's robe. His eyes were older, colder. "Name's Commander Tyrax," he said. "I saw your little trick in the arena." Very graceful, almost like training. Kale didn't open his eyes. "Not a trick." Tyrax crossed his arms. "Who trained you?" Kale smiled faintly. "Earth, long before your kind thought we were pets." Tyrax stepped closer. "There are rumors that you're one of the ghost units. Thought they were wiped out in the border wars." Kale finally opened his eyes. "Some ghosts never left." Tyrax didn't speak again. He just watched the human carefully, as if he were trying to see through him, then walked out without a word. Later that night, Kale was led to a smaller, private arena. No crowds, no audience. Only high-ranking officers standing in silence. This wasn't a show, it was a test. They gave Kale no weapon. Across from him stood 4 armored warriors with training blades. "Begin," said one. They rushed him together. Kale moved like water, 1 duck, 2 steps, then a sharp spin. He caught one attacker's arm mid-swing and twisted. The blade flew free. He kicked the second in the leg, a weak point in their armor, and the alien dropped. Within seconds, all 4 were on the floor, groaning. Kale didn't even breathe heavy. The officers exchanged glances. He fought like he'd seen true war. One muttered. Another added, "No wasted moves, not a show-off." That's real field experience. But Princess Arixa wasn't impressed. She was watching from the shadows. After they left, she stepped into the arena. Alone. Kale stood still as she approached. "You humiliated me," she said plainly. "No," Kale replied. "I showed mercy." That made her angrier. Mercy is weakness. Then maybe that's what your empire is missing. She raised her practice blade. "Fight me now. No audience, no rules." Kale looked at her blade, then down at his empty hands. He sighed. "You're not angry at me. You're angry that your entire life you were told you were unbeatable." She didn't answer. She charged. This time, Kale didn't dodge. He blocked with his forearms, letting the blow strike. She followed with a flurry of attacks, trying to break through. Kale moved backward, never striking, only defending. "You're strong," he said between blocks. "But predictable." She shouted and spun for a wild, powerful strike. Kale caught her wrist again, the same one, and held it in place. She froze. They stood like that, her blade raised. His grip unmoving. Kale leaned in. "You're better than this." He let go. She didn't attack again. For a long moment, she looked at him, not like a warrior, but like someone seeing a crack in her world for the first time. Sirens howled through the ship. Red lights flashed down the halls of the Dranex battlecruiser. Soldiers ran in every direction, shouting orders, securing weapons. But in the prisoner wing, one door stood open. Kale's cell. The guards lay unconscious outside, not dead, just asleep, no wounds. No alarms triggered, and Kale was gone. Princess Arixa stormed into the control room. Her golden armor clicked with every step. "Where is he?" she demanded. Commander Tyrax turned. From the main screen, sweat on his brow. He disappeared 5 minutes before the alert began. No breach, no damage. It's like he walked through the walls. "Impossible," Arixa hissed. "No," Tyrax said slowly. "Just human." Meanwhile, on the lower decks, Kale moved through. The shadows like he'd lived there his whole life. Every turn, every camera, every patrol, he knew them all. His hands, once chained, now moved freely, swiftly unlocking a small door marked Sector S9, Engineering Access. Inside, a group of alien children huddled together, frightened. Some were hybrids, part Dranics, part something else, wearing old rags, hiding from the Empire. Kale knelt beside them. "It's all right. I'm not here to hurt you." One little girl, with soft blue skin and glowing eyes, whispered. "Are you the ghost fighter?" Kale smiled faintly. "I'm just someone who remembers what fear feels like." He reached into a hidden pouch sewn into his old uniform and pulled out a small projector. It lit up. A map of the ship appeared. In 3D, along with escape routes marked in red. "Time to get you out." Back in the royal chamber, King Ralzek slammed his fists onto the armrest. "He was a test, a trick. I told you we never should have brought a human aboard." Tyrax, nervous but trying to stay calm, said, "He may be more than that. There's something I haven't told you." The king glared. "Speak." "The mark on his shoulder," Tyrax said slowly. "It's not a scar, it's a seal. From Earth's deep black military command. Ghost units, yes, but higher. The kind we never captured during the war." The king's face tightened. "If he's active," Tyrax continued, "then Earth is watching, and maybe they sent him." In a hidden room between the fuel banks, Kale trained the children. Not with weapons, with stances, movements, defense. "How can we fight?" A small boy asked. "We're weak." Kale knelt to his level. "You think I was born strong?" The boy looked confused. Kale gently placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I was raised in rubble. My city was ash. I survived because someone once taught me what I'm teaching you now. It's not about fighting to win, it's about knowing when not to run." Just then, the door slid open, and Arixa stepped in. Alone, she looked at the scene, the children copying Kale's stance, his calm voice guiding them. "I should arrest you," she said quietly. Kale didn't turn. "Then do it." She didn't. "Move." After a pause, she asked, "Why are you doing this?" He looked over his shoulder. "Because I've seen what your empire calls justice, and I won't let these kids be part of it." She frowned. "You could escape. Why stay?" Kale stood slowly. "Because I'm not running. Not yet." Later that night, Arixa stood in her quarters, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her armor, polished and perfect, suddenly felt heavy. Like a mask she no longer believed in. She touched her wrist, the one Kale had disarmed before. It still ached. Not from pain, but memory. She whispered to herself, "What if he's right?" That same hour, Tyrax received a report from Deep Sensors. He rushed into the king's chamber. "Sire," he panted, "we've scanned the object that triggered the alert. It's gone now, but it left behind a trace." Ralzek raised an eyebrow. "Trace of what?" Tyrax hesitated, then handed him a datapad. "A quantum pulse. The signature matches old Earth stealth vessels." Ralzek's eyes widened. "A human ship? Cloaked?" Tyrax nodded. "It wasn't here for war. Just watching." The king clenched the datapad. "If they're watching," he growled, "then the human was never our prisoner." The next morning. Nothing was the same aboard the Dranic's battlecruiser. The servants walked more carefully. The guards tightened their patrols. Officers avoided eye contact. Not because Kale had escaped his cell, but because he'd come back. He stood near the training yard, arms crossed, quietly observing two alien soldiers sparring. The guards had their weapons raised, but no one dared to shoot. Not after what he did yesterday. Not after the rumors. One word whispered over and over: ghost. Princess Arixa watched him from the upper platform. She should have hated him. He embarrassed her, mocked her in front of thousands. But now she wasn't sure who he really was. She walked down to him, slow, proud. "You're not a prisoner anymore," she said. Kale didn't look at her. "Was I ever?" She paused. "You could have killed any of us." He finally turned. "That was never the mission," Arixa frowned. "Mission?" Kale stared into her golden eyes. "I wasn't sent here to entertain you. I was sent to test your empire." She stepped back. "Test?" Kale nodded. "To see if there's anything left in your kind worth saving." Far from the battlecruiser, deep in the core of a cloaked human scout ship, Admiral Wren watched Kale through a live feed. Around her stood Earth's finest minds, silent, tense. "Phase 1 is complete," said an officer. "He's confirmed. Weakness in the Royal Command. Any threats?" She asked. "Not from the aliens," the officer said. "But something else is moving. The Scorch." Everyone in the room turned. Even Wren's face paled. "The Scorch," she repeated. "Yes. We intercepted burst transmissions. Old enemies. They're waking up again. And they're heading straight for the Dranik sector." She looked back at the screen, watching Kale. "Then he needs to push harder." Inside the Dranik's war room, General Tyrax stared at a black box placed on the table. He'd found it under his bed. No alarms triggered. No signs of entry. He slowly opened it. Inside, a steel tag, engraved with human military code, and a note written in Dranik's language. "You lost the last war. You just didn't know it yet." Tyrax's hands trembled. He turned to the guards. "Call the king, now." Back on the ship's lower decks, Kale knelt beside one of the children he'd trained. The boy, a hybrid with pale scales and human-like eyes, held a wooden stick like a blade. "You remember what I taught you?" Kale asked. The boy nodded. "Balance first. Then movement. Good." From behind, Arixa watched the scene. She leaned against the wall. "You trained these kids better than most of my soldiers." Kale stood, quiet. "Because they have something your soldiers lost." She raised a brow. "What? Purpose?" He said. She looked down at the boy. "They're just children." "So was I," Kale replied, "when your kind burned my colony." In the Royal Command Hall, King Ralzek finally received the sensor report. He stared at it with tight jaws. A stealth ship. "Human." Tyrax nodded. "Cloaked. Scanned us. Left a quantum marker." "Meaning," Ralzek cut him off. "Meaning they never truly lost." The king slammed his fist onto the control panel. "We let that creature inside our home." Tyrax whispered. "And he's winning without a single weapon." The king growled, then gave a single cold order. "Prepare the execution arena. He dies tonight." Back in the ship's garden dome, a rare peaceful place of green life and silence, Kale sat alone on a bench. Arixa approached slowly. No armor, no guards. Just herself. She sat beside him. "They're planning something. I feel it." "No," Kale said. "You're not scared?" He turned his head toward her. "I was trained to die before I ever learned to win." She looked at him, truly looked at him. The scars on his arms, the way his eyes never rested. The calm in his voice, not from pride, but pain. "Why help us?" She whispered. "You hate us." Kale took a breath. "No," he said. "I hate what power turns people into. But not you." She blinked. "I saw the way you looked when the blade fell from your hand. You weren't angry at me. You were angry at yourself. That means there's hope," she whispered. "And if I change, will it matter?" Kale didn't answer. With words, he reached into his pocket and placed a human badge into her hand, the mark of the ghost units. Asterisk. A blood-red sun was setting behind the Dranic's battlecruiser as its massive execution arena lit up. The crowd gathered again, louder than before, eager to watch the humans end. Chains bound Kale's hands and feet as he stood in the center of the arena. His head was bowed, but his eyes scanned everything: guards, shadows, exits, calculating. Up on the royal balcony, King Ralzik sat still, his daughter beside him. Arixa's armor was polished, her face unreadable, but inside her heart, something cracked. He was right, she thought. This isn't justice. This is fear dressed as tradition. Hours earlier, she had stood in her chamber, staring at the ghost unit badge Kale had given her. No one ever got close to Earth's ghosts. They were myths, living weapons. Yet Kale had trusted her, not with a blade, but with something far more dangerous. The truth. Now she had to decide, not between Kale and her father, but between what she'd been taught and what she was finally seeing. In deep orbit, cloaked in the void, the Scorch fleet unfolded from hyperspace like a storm. Giant shadow ships, shaped like razors and crawling with red light, spread across the stars. Their commander, a faceless being wrapped in black wires, studied the Dranic's cruiser through glowing sensors. This sector is still diseased with pride, it hissed. We purge pride. Inside the lead ship, strange weapons hummed, not built to kill bodies, but to erase minds. They were coming fast. And no one aboard the Dranic ship saw it. Except Kale. Back in the arena, the king stood tall and raised his voice. Let all remember this moment, when the might of the Dranic's empire ends the last whisper of human resistance. The crowd roared. Kale lifted his head. You think I'm resistance? The king sneered. Aren't you? Kale smiled. I'm just the warning. Suddenly, alarms shrieked. The sky above the ship turned black. Scorched ships dropped from the stars like burning swords. The entire battlecruiser shook, shields breached. A voice screamed over. Comes, we're under attack. The arena exploded into chaos. Kale ripped free from his chains. They weren't locked properly. He sprinted toward a guard, disarmed him in one clean motion, and vanished into the smoke. The king shouted, Find him! Kill him! But Arixa was already moving, not to stop Kale, to follow him, on the weapons deck. Kale slid down a maintenance ladder, moving like he'd memorized every bolt of the ship. He entered the secure room that held ancient blueprints of alien defenses. Arixa caught up to him, breathing hard. What are you doing? He didn't look up. Saving your empire. She pulled her blade. Tell me the truth, now. Kale tapped. A hidden panel. A hologram flickered to life, Earth tech overlaid onto the alien system. It showed dozens of enemy ships converging on one weak spot. Scorch mind weapons, he said. They don't just fight, they rot leadership. Cause panic. Your systems aren't ready. Your soldiers won't last 10 minutes. Her hands trembled. Then why help us? Because if they destroy you, Earth is next. Meanwhile, the Dranic's fleet launched fighters, but they were torn apart within seconds. The Scorch didn't fight fair. They used fear like fire. One Dranic's pilot screamed mid-flight. Then his ship exploded, not from a hit, but from his own hand. The king watched helplessly as entire wings fell. Back in the war chamber, Kale patched directly into the communication line and spoke into the mic. This is Kale, Human ID, Ghost Unit 06. I am assuming command of defense. Protocol Theta Black. The system resisted, then beeped in approval. Earth's tech had already rewritten the rules. Arixa stared in disbelief. You just took control of our ship. No, Kale said. I just gave it a chance. He handed her a wristband. You want to fight for real? Then wear this. I'll teach you something your generals never did. How to win a war that isn't about honor, but survival. Together, they sprinted to the ground control deck. Kale led a squad of alien hybrids and rejected soldiers, the ones he'd trained quietly in the lower levels. They weren't clean. They weren't proud, but they listened. And Arixa followed his commands, her golden armor clanked beside him. For the first time, she didn't feel like a princess. She felt like a soldier. A deep rumble moved through the battlecruiser's bones, a low, unnatural sound like a scream beneath metal. The Scorch fleet had surrounded them. Their weapons didn't glow, they drained. Draenei ships powered down without firing a shot. One by one, systems went dark, engines froze. And pilots collapsed without wounds. It wasn't a fight. It was a slow erasure. Inside the command deck, Kale stood at the center, issuing orders fast and sharp. Route emergency power to the lower decks. Cut visual feeds. No one sees the Scorch. Directly, not without shielding. Princess Arixa relayed his commands, her voice firm and focused. Move civilians to pressure-sealed corridors, no open helmets. No eye contact with enemy visuals. The bridge crew obeyed, not because she was royalty, but because she knew what she was doing. And because Kale stood beside her, calm in chaos. In the arena, King Ralzek watched in confusion as his warriors panicked. Generals screamed, unable to think clearly. Captains ran. The great banners of the Draenei Empire, once proud symbols, hung limp, useless. Tyrax approached. "Sire, your daughter has taken command of the lower fleet." Ralzek snarled. "She's obeying a human." "She's winning with him," Tyrax whispered. The king struck him across the face. Then he turned to his remaining guards. "Ready. My ship. I'll burn that traitor and the slave with my own hands." Arixa and Kale entered the weapons bay. The hybrid squad stood ready, nervous but trained. Kale pulled up a hologram of the Scorch mothership, a living engine of black wires and cold fire. "We can't destroy it," he said. "But we can cut its mind." Arixa frowned. "Its mind?" Kale nodded. "It's controlled by a neural core, not tech, not flesh. Something between. If we disrupt its link, the rest scatter." He handed her a human-made spear, old butt, humming with strange light. She gripped it. "You want me to lead the strike?" Kale's eyes met hers. "I want you to finish what I started." In a narrow launch tube, Kale and Arixa suited up. The airlock counted down. 3, 2, 1. They launched into open space, small drop pods tearing through the void, racing toward the Scorch core. All around them, Draenei's fighters dropped like ash. The Scorch didn't shoot, they consumed will. Inside the pod, Arixa began to shake. Kale's voice cut through. "Don't let them in. Your fear is your shield." She gritted her teeth. "What if I fail?" "You won't," he said, "because you already did once. And you survived." She blinked. Then nodded. They hit the hull hard. The surface of the Scorch mothership was alive, pulsing, moving. They cut their way in. Inside, the walls were lined with screaming faces, not dead, not alive, just stolen. The hybrid squad followed close behind, weapons ready. No one spoke. Suddenly, a figure emerged, tall, in black coils. Its face like melting glass. It didn't speak aloud. Its voice was in their minds. "You follow a broken species." It whispered. "Humans are scars in time." Kale stepped forward. "And scars mean we survived." He opened fire, not with bullets, but with an EMP grenade built for psychic interference. It exploded, not loud, but empty. The Scorch figure screamed silently and dissolved into the wall. Kale turned to Arixa. "Now go." Arixa sprinted down the twisting halls of the core. She passed vision rooms filled with echoes of other fallen worlds. Visions tried to break. Her father dying, her soldiers burning, Kale turning on her, but she kept moving. She reached the heart, a pulsating brain suspended in glowing fluid. Protected by a shield of sound. She raised the spear. The voice returned. "You can't win. Your people are already lost." Arixa gritted her teeth. "Then I'll give them a reason to be found." Then she threw the spear. It struck the core. The entire scorched ship howled. Back on the Dranex battlecruiser, lights flickered. Back to life, engines roared. Soldiers stopped screaming. The spell was broken. In space, scorched ships drifted like dead leaves. Without the mind, the swarm had no purpose. Inside the scorched hull, Kale reached Arixa and caught her before she fell. Her breath was heavy, her armor cracked. "You did it," he said. She smiled weakly. "I aimed right this time." The royal court was silent. The smoke from the battle still clung to the ship's walls. Cracks ran across the marble floors. Flags of the once mighty Dranex Empire hung torn, flickering in the dim light. In the center, Kale stood tall, his armor scratched, his hands free. No chains, no guards, no fear. Arixa stood beside him, her face calm, but her voice firm. "The Scorch are not defeated forever. But today, we stop them. And not with your rules, with truth." King Ralzek held his blade tight, his hand trembling. "You gave power to a human. And you bring shame to our blood." Arixa stared at him. "You call it shame. I call it survival." Guards around the throne chamber looked between the king and Kale. No one moved. Then, slowly, Tyrak stepped forward. He knelt before Kale, not as surrender, but respect. "I was trained to hate humans," he said. "But today, I saw one save my crew. My people, my daughter." He looked up at the king. "The empire is not yours to break anymore." Ralzek's sword lowered, not by force, by truth. He turned and walked away. No one followed him. In the days that followed, the ship was repaired. Not with ceremony, with unity. Alien engineers worked alongside humans, soldiers trained under new orders. The ghost of fear faded, and Arixa changed. She no longer wore her golden armor. She wore standard gear, ate with the troops, walked among the lower decks where she once never stepped. Everywhere she went, she asked the same question: "What do you need?" And always, one name came up. Kale. Kale didn't sit on any throne. He didn't take titles. He worked in the training halls, guiding recruits, many of whom once feared or hated his kind. He taught them how to fight, but more than that, how to think, not like machines, but like people with purpose. When Arixa found him again, he was fixing a broken sparring bot, with two hybrid kids watching carefully. "You're hard to find," she said. Kale smirked. "You're the queen now. I figured you'd be busy." She rolled her eyes. "I refused the crown." He looked up surprised. "Why?" She shrugged. "Because I've already met someone better at leading than me." He shook his head. "I'm not here to lead. I'm here to prepare." "For what?" Kale stood, serious now. "This galaxy doesn't stay peaceful for long." Elsewhere, in the deepest vaults of Earth's command, Admiral Wren watched a new message sent from Kale's temporary station. She read it twice, short, clean, clear. "Mission complete. Subject Princess Arixa, redeemable. Empire, recoverable. Recommend alliance initiation." She turned to her aides. "Send the ship." The sky above the Dranex capital ship shimmered. 1 week later, out of the stars came a vessel no one had seen before, Earth's true fleet, sleek, black, silent, and beautiful. Not built for war, built for presence. One ship. That's all. It took. Inside the command center, alien officers watched as the ship opened. "Comes." A human voice echoed. "We come not as conquerors, but as proof that what you thought you knew about us was wrong." Kale stood on the landing bay as the ship arrived. Beside him, Arixa. She whispered, "When I first saw you, I thought you were weak." He smiled gently. "You weren't wrong." She frowned. "I was." Kale looked at her. "No, I was weak, once, but weakness teaches you more than strength ever will." She stepped closer. "And now?" He looked ahead, wind brushing through his short hair, his back straight, his chains long gone. "Now I'm just free." Later that night, as stars lit the sky outside the viewport, Arixa sat quietly beside Kale. The room was quiet, no orders, no war. No guards. Just breath and silence. She asked softly, "Will Earth trust us?" He replied, "That depends on what you do next." She nodded slowly. "And what about you? What will you do?" Kale turned to her, not as soldier to commander, but as human. "To friend, I'll stay," he said, "as long as I'm needed. But one day, I'll walk away. That's the gift we earned." She smiled. "You're not what I expected." He chuckled. "Good." In the farthest corner of the galaxy, deep inside a dead nebula, something stirred. Not the scorched. Something older. A signal bounced into deep space. One word repeated. Human. And this time, it didn't sound like fear. It sounded like a warning. Asterisk.